Zoom. Welcome everybody. I'm Stacey with NutritionJobs and thank you for joining us for another LinkedIn Live. I have a very special guest, one of my lovely, lovely guests who is a wealth of information that can help us with our career, and that is Amy Gorin. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you so much. And it's so fun to be here with you.
I appreciate you being here and chatting with us. So, you know that I like to interview people and talk to people and share with our community all things about dietetic careers and how we can make more money as dietitians and how we can explore different avenues and niches within dietetics to really make us feel satisfied. So, it's not just about the money, of course, it's about all kinds of different things, what type of job that we want to go into. But I think being able to find a job that you really enjoy is a type of work that can really create some longevity. So Amy is a media dietitian. And so Amy, I thought we could just start off by giving a definition of what a media dietitian is, because I get that question. I think you and I just sort of toss that keyword around, keyword like on your LinkedIn profile or on your resume. And maybe can you just like step us back a bit and explain to everybody exactly what a media dietitian is?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And you can be, just for what it's worth, you can be a media dietitian, you can be a media dietitian technician. If you're a nutrition student, you can be an expert with influence. So basically, you have an expertise, you have influence, and you talk to the media about whatever it is that you specialize in. So for me, my area of focus is plant-based nutrition. So I am a media plant-based dietitian. And what that means is, and this can look so many different ways, but a typical day might be, doing an interview for Well and Good on plant-based eating, and then doing, maybe a podcast interview like Stacey and I are, or a LinkedIn Live interview like Stacey and I are doing now. And then oftentimes, usually media dietitians also work with brands. And this is where the really nice, and we're going to talk a lot more about this, but this is where the money, flexibility, the time freedom comes in, because what happens is you're working with brands, you're getting paid quite a significant amount of money because they're using your expertise to endorse their products. And so what that means is you could work with a pasta company to create recipes. You could be at one of their events, like doing a cooking demo on how to make some healthy pasta dish. You could give a quote for a press release that's going out about their new, bean pasta. And so really what this comes down to is, so I media train dietitians and other health professionals. And I teach them how to do this work, working with the media, working with brand partnerships. And it's really amazing. It can be your sole source of income, or it can be an additional income stream that you add to your full-time job. And we're talking, a six-figure income stream that can be your sole income, or it can be an additional. And I know that amount of money sounds a little wild to us dietitians.
That does. I do want to talk about money, but I want to go back to one thing that you had said before that I thought was sort of interesting is, so when we think of being a media dietitian, you think that you are going to sort of span out into the whole field of different food brands and companies that you can work with. But what you're saying actually is that you're a plant-based dietitian and a media dietitian, and you've merged those two niches together so that you're going to work with brands, foods, products, companies that sort of align with your niche, that help strengthen your niche, and also something that you can communicate to your community that you have fostered, whether you're a private practice dietitian or inpatient dietitian, whatever, that your specific niche is how you are working as a media dietitian. I think that's a kind of an important element to highlight.
Yeah, and thank you so much for bringing that up, because that's literally the first thing that I work with my students on when they join Master the Media is, what's your area of focus? What's your niche? And so that's step one. It's too broad to say, I'm a dietitian and I can answer your questions about anything related to dietitian, because in reality, I can't even answer someone's questions about, like, what should I eat if I have breast cancer? What should I eat if I'm on, dialysis? And there's so many different kinds of dietitians out there and specialties, which is why the media and brands need all of us. So this is why I love it, because I always get the question of, well, is there enough of all of this media and brand work to go around? And the answer is absolutely yes, because if like a media outlet comes to me and they're like, hey, Amy, can you do an interview on what Olympians should eat to, competitive swim? I will say, no, that's not my specialty, but I'll pass you along to a sports dietitian colleague. And I will answer anything related to plant-based eating. And so this is just why, I think it feels scary to have an area of expertise, but it's actually the best thing that you can do for yourself.
Oh, for sure. And for your community, I think, like we just said, like you've built up a community within your niche, plant-based, or if you are a sports dietitian working with teens, or if you're a renal dietitian or someone who specializes in menopause, like that's the community that you work with. And that's why the brand is wanting to tap into you and to your audience. So you don't have to feel this pressure of taking anything that comes your way because of all this information that Amy has given you, and that you can specialize, because there's abundance, right? There's work for everybody. There's plenty of work to be had. I think you'll talk a little bit more about this, but so how did you give us a little bit about your background and how you got involved in working with the media?
Yeah, so I am actually a second career dietitian. And my first career, I was a magazine editor in New York City. I worked at Prevention, Parents, American Baby, Weight Watchers magazine. And it was really, really fun. Like I got to meet celebrities and it was fun. But I was living in New York City making like $14, $15 an hour. And I just thought there has to be something better than this, like where I can actually pay my rent and not feel that like I have to work overtime, like 70 hours a week just to make ends meet. So I was actually, then I started thinking about going back to school to become a dietitian. And that was this whole long journey. As you guys know, it took me 7 years of going to school while working. And I thought literally everything will just be magical now. Once I'm a dietitian, I'll get that job that pays me more money than, my magazine editor job. I'll be happy. You know, it was really hard to find a job once I became a dietitian. And the only job that was like available to me was working at a long-term care center. I got $40 an hour, which is about what I built my salary up to at that point as an editor. And I thought, I did all of this. I have all of these student loans. I spent all of this time and money going back to school, and I'm making literally the same amount of money that I was making as an editor. And that's when I just started thinking like, okay, I have this nutrition expertise. I have this media experience. What if I were to combine them? And I just literally, I started reaching out to food companies and media companies. And that's when that first year that I was a dietitian, I was able to earn $147,000 in that first year doing media and brand work. And then in the second year, I made $262,000. And then every year thereafter, it's just been this, it's been like $200,000 from media and brand work.
Just from media and brand work. Yeah, I think that's so awesome. Yeah, exactly.
And it's like you can have that, you can have your private practice or your hospital job, whatever it is, and you can be doing, I think that's the biggest misconception that I get about being a media dietitian is like, you have to stop doing everything else. Like you can do it all, or you can do it full time. It's totally up to you. But a lot of people just kind of see it as, okay, I still want to work at the hospital. I still want to do my private practice, and I can do this on the side. And it's really just amazing because it's so much fun. And I know we're talking about money and time, but it's also like you are in the nutrition field because you're passionate about sharing your messages with millions of people. And when you're interviewed for an article or you work with a brand, you get to reach millions of people versus like those one or two people that you meet, in a session when you're doing individual counseling.
I think I heard one important thing that you were talking about in there, and I'm going to bring it back to a project that I have put out into the universe, and that is dietitiansalaries.com. It's a salary transparency tool. People can participate, dietitians within the US, by entering in their salary information anonymously, and then you get a report. You can see a sortable table of what people are making, and then on the back end, I like to do some analysis on that data. And there's two things that have sort of been shocking to me about this. One is that most dietitians are working more than one job. A lot of dietitians are working more than one job. And the average salary is, for those people who are working multiple jobs, is sort of what you would expect. It's between like $60,000 and $80,000. But the people that are working in media, in brand partnerships, or brand ambassadors, or whatever term that they're going to use, nutrition communications in the media, they are the ones that are making six figures. And I just find that fascinating that we're open to working more than one area in a day or in a week. And so tell me a little bit more about so I think you're right. There is this misconception about how many hours it's going to take someone to work in the media, or they already have a full-time job, and the idea of quitting that full-time job and then just overnight going into working as a media dietitian doesn't seem, it seems too big of a project. It seems too overwhelming, and it seems too scary to be able to do. So what I have learned from you over the years is how you can actually blend those two things, and how you can actually work not a full-time 40 hours a week on your media work. So can you tell a little bit about like what people can expect for the amount of hours?
Absolutely. I mean, so I want to clear one thing up. I definitely do not recommend, if you have your full-time job and you want to do media work, just quitting your job and going straight into it, because it is going to take a minute. I'm not saying years, it just months, of figuring out the landscape. And that's what I love helping people with. But you're going to want to do both at the same time, just so you can start building up your presence, getting interviewed. Really getting those first couple of interviews is what's going to get you. Everything else is going to get you featured in the outlets you want to get featured in. It's going to get you the brand partnerships that you want. And then you have the freedom to decide, do I want to continue this full time? Do I want to maybe cut back my practice hours to part-time? And that's what I see a lot of my students doing is, they come to me and they're feeling burnt out. They're spending like 30 hours a week counseling, which is a lot, everything that goes into that. It's fulfilling, but it's also exhausting. And so a lot of them end up cutting back to like 10, 20 patients a week. Then they're working with brands and they tell me, Amy, I'm making more money than I ever was, and I'm working less. I'm spending, like it can literally be 5 hours a week on media and brand work. And then you have this whole additional other income stream. And I know I keep on saying it's incredible, but it's so much fun. Like, if you want to, a lot of times the brands will bring you to their headquarters and you get to tour their facilities and understand how their products are made. And that's really fun. They'll hire you at a trade show to like work at their booth. I worked alongside celebrity chefs at events to, be the nutrition expert. And I've made like recipe books for brands. So whatever it is that you think is really fun. For me, I love coffee, and I got to make like a 15 recipe book for a coffee company. So it's kind of just like whatever floats your boat. And for me, like my bucket list media is like People Magazine, Washington Post, and I've gotten to appear in all of those. And it's just really fun too, because like your friends are going to be like, oh, you're that famous dietitian. I saw you quoted. I was Googling this random thing and you were in the article.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. Oh, Amy, I love hearing all these things. I'm going to invite our participants to put any questions they have for Amy in the chat. I did get a direct message over on LinkedIn prior to this from somebody who wanted to know. And so, Amy, I'm just going to ask you. They want to go into working as a media dietitian or working with brands, but they kind of don't know like how to get started. And I said that's sort of what you do. That's the niche that you've created. So actually, Amy has three niches. She has her plant-based nutrition niche. She has a business working as a media dietitian for food companies, and then the other thing that she does is teaches other dietitians how to work with the media. So I think sort of bringing those together and talking about like that's sort of what you do is, I think people get overwhelmed and think, oh my gosh, I don't even know how to pitch a company. I don't even know what to do once they say yes, I want to work with you, and then what do I do afterwards? How do I invoice them? How, what's the whole process? And so maybe, Amy, you can talk a little bit about how you help other dietitians.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I literally have spent the last many, many years condensing my decades of experience into a crash course of how to accomplish all of this in 6 months at most. It comes down to 5 hours a week that you need. And I know that sounds overly simple, but it's literally kind of just figuring out that landscape of how to pitch media, how to pitch brands, and there's a formula to it. And I know, Stacey, you have a link to the masterclass that I am hosting next week. And we're going to spend a whole hour talking about how to get started with media and brand partnerships. So what we're covering today is kind of a teaser for that. So Stacey will have her link. She'll probably offer you something really cool and special for signing up through her. And so that's going to be Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. We got a request for an evening class, so we are doing that this time.
Oh, that sounds good. Yeah. So I will share with that information. And then one person put into the chat, they had a question about how someone can work with you. Do you offer coaching services for that? So that's what that is. And then how do we get in touch? And there's free stuff and then there's paid stuff. So I will share those links. And then another person asked, can you speak about ethical boundaries that would be a consideration when you are working with the media and with your community? Like, what are your thoughts on boundaries around that?
Absolutely. And I just want to backtrack for 1 second. So I know Stacey mentioned next week we're doing a free masterclass. It's completely free. Spots are limited though, so you have to grab yours. And then Stacey also has a link to our paid program, which is 6 months of really awesome coaching through myself, and we have other amazing instructors who, like the former editor-in-chief of All Recipes, someone on Good Morning America, and we help you navigate this whole landscape. So Stacey will share that with you. And then yes, for ethical, this is like one of my things that I just feel very passionate about talking about, because there's been a lot of chatter about this recently. And I think a really, really common misconception is like, if you want to work with brands, you have to sell your soul. You have to work with companies and maybe work with companies you don't believe in or lie or anyway. I will tell you, I've turned down more partnerships than I've accepted over my career. And that's because either it could be a product I really like, but then when I get into conversations with them, they want me to say something that's really scientifically unsound, or they want me to, like, literally this has happened. I've had to like walk away from a contract halfway through because they're like, the CEO has disagreed with like the actual science. It is what it is. Or, they want me to not disclose to the media that I'm working with them, which is a big no-no. Or maybe just at the beginning of like, they offer me a partnership and it's an ingredient that, for instance, like I am very sensitive to sugar alcohols. So it's very unlikely that I'll ever promote, a product that's made with erythritol. And so that's something I would turn down just because I don't feel like I'm true to my audience if I'm telling them to use something that I personally wouldn't use or offer to my family. And so this is why there's just so many opportunities, because everything that I turn down, I pass along to my students. Sometimes there's also conflicts of interest. If I'm working with a supplement company and I get offered, a contract for something that's really similar, I also can't take that on, but I pass that along. And that's what makes this whole process really beautiful, because there ends up being more than enough work for everyone.
I was going to say that. I think you can have the luxury of turning down something that doesn't align with your own values or is not going to help. Like you're obviously not going to work with a company that is animal products because you are a plant-based dietitian and that's who your
Yeah,
community is, right? So
exactly.
it just doesn't align. So, and you're a professional, you are an expert, and there is abundance. So you have the luxury of turning that down. There is lots of work in this area, so you don't have to feel anxious about that. And then, as you said, I think the ethical boundaries might also include disclosures, like making sure. I know this is like sort of top of news still, that it's very important to be able to disclose that you're working with somebody or that you got a free trip for somebody from somebody or whatever that relationship was, and just making sure that that's very clear.
Yeah, there's so much like, if you get a free product as a media dietitian, if I, post like, oh, I just got this new Kind bar for free, I would need to say that like in an Instagram story that I got free samples, because you have to be transparent with your audience. That's the only way for them to fully trust you. And then when other brands see that you're disclosing, that you're transparent, that's going to see that you have credibility and that you're trustworthy, and that'll make them want to work with you.
Yeah, that's a really good point as well. And I think it also sort of establishes like what it's going to be like to work with you. So I think, yeah, there's some guidelines there. I think so. The Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, I believe, has guidelines for what to disclose, not disclose, how to do it, sponsored, hashtag sponsored or whatever it might be. Amy, I can't remember from your course because I also have it. You guys, it's awesome. but remind me, do you have information in there about like what the process is to
Yeah.
disclose?
Yeah.
Okay.
So my program, it's called Master the Media Training and Certification. And we go through like everything you'll ever need to know about working with the media as a dietitian. But yes, we go through the ins and outs of disclosure. And I'm always, just so you know, I'm always like over disclose, just because you don't risk anything by sharing too much. You risk everything by sharing too little.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Okay, we've got another question, and the question is of your appearances mainly are they with NBC, CBS, like the main affiliate networks, or are there other outlets you've been on, and any brand work on streaming services yet?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. So I'll start with the first part. I personally have been featured in pretty much almost almost every outlet that exists. I've been doing this a long time, guys. So I've been in mainstream media like NBC, ABC, CBS, Associated Press, which is syndicated, MSN, like the big ones. And then there's also a lot of niche publications, and I love those, like Well and Good, Very Well Health, even like I wrote an article once for a publication called Medical Economics. It's like there's Today's Dietitian. So I kind of like make it a fun game with myself of like, ooh, if there's a new outlet, I want to get into it.
I want to say one quick thing. I'll interject. Don't feel intimidated by what Amy is saying. In fact, feel like, oh, thank goodness someone has come ahead of me and can guide me along the way. So think of it that way. But just think that, know that she has done all this stuff, and her interest is helping other people be successful too. So she has a very impressive as seen in list on her website, and she shows you how to do that. But it also is just to share with you that she's an excellent coach and can show you how to make that happen. So.
And literally, we teach our students how to make this happen, but then we also bring the opportunities to them. So like every day we're like, here's an opportunity. Today we had Real Simple. For the students to be featured in, and then like a paid brand opportunity. We're constantly sharing like opportunities sometimes that are like $50,000 just to put that out there. For brands, again, this is like something that I only work with brands that I'm truly excited and passionate about. So some of my clients that I've loved working with are Harvest Snaps, like those crunchy green peas. I worked with Breville. They made a Blucer, which was a blender plus a juicer. So I did a lot of recipe development with them. And I did an event with Dan Churchill, the celebrity chef. That was really cool. And Jura, the coffee company, they make these really high-end products. And I got to not only get paid, but I got like a $5,000 coffee machine as part of the whole show.
Nice.
Streaming services, I think you mean like Netflix, things like that. I have not, but that is something that there's a lot of really cool opportunities coming around these days, and something that is really something that comes up a lot for media dietitians is something called a satellite media tour, which is something where you just like you film TV and radio back to back to back. So like you're maybe talking about what to eat as an Olympic athlete, and you're doing a whole series of interviews that are kind of the same over and over, and it's usually sponsored by a brand. That's kind of a version of that. And a lot of brands will want dietitians to go on TV and talk about their products. I've done that for NBC, where you get paid to do a TV segment and appear on a major network, which is really cool.
That is cool. And I think I'm going to piggyback on this person's question in that. So we are talking about sort of the obvious way to be a media dietitian is to be on syndicated or networked television where you're actually speaking to a camera. But there's also other types of ways to be a media dietitian. You could do it on your social media accounts. You can be in newspapers. You can be in publications like magazines, online, in print. Like there's a lot of different ways. And so I think when people think about, oh my gosh, she went on a trip and was on live TV, like that's going to take 60 hours a week. I think kind of going back to this, it could be sort of anything that you want. It could be a smaller amount of work. As you know, I do some media work as well, and I just do it on the side. And it's usually, a much smaller part of my day, but yet the return on it is really big. The income and the funness of it is really big. And so it doesn't always have to be something major. It could just be, like you said, I think you talked about this before, it could just be a few hours a week. Maybe that's writing an article or doing some recipe development. It doesn't have to be a major 60-hour a week job. It can be, but it doesn't have to be.
60 hours a week. I don't recommend anyone works 60 hours. But it doesn't, to your point, it doesn't even have to be in front of the scenes. A lot of people, ask me like, I'm really, really shy. And by the way, I'm an introvert, just to put that out there. But you don't have to be doing TV and things like that every day. You can consult with brands. You can help them come up with their nutrition messaging. You can write content for their website. You can recipe test. One of the coolest projects I did was with that Breville project, where I created the recipes, and then we had to figure out how to get them nutritionally analyzed, because there's no way to analyze really that exists, like something that's blend, like for, you're pureeing, blending, juicing things that like there's no information out there. So I had to create the recipe, mail them off to this lab, figure out like how to get that done. It was very cool, very expensive. And then we got like these nutrition, these things like analyzed in the way that, a packaged product gets nutritionally analyzed. So sometimes you're just helping companies figure out how to do something that they think is impossible and making it possible.
Ooh, I love that. And I think some dietitians are taking care of family during the day, and so they need to have like a little side gig or something in addition to maybe a traditional job that they can sort of fit into their week. And so I think working, there's just a lot of different ways that you can work as a media dietitian. So I could go on and on. You and I love this conversation. I think because I do it too, and I think it's really fun, and it's just great, and it doesn't take a lot of time, and it's like seriously, people, companies have a lot of money, and so for-profit companies, as opposed to maybe where some of us work in traditional jobs, it's just a little bit different. So
and just to put that out there, because I know people are probably thinking like, money, what do you mean? Like think, anywhere from like $200 to even $1,000 an hour when you're working with brands. I've gotten paid literally $1,000 a minute to speak, which is wild. It's like,
yeah.
Right. These brands, they have money, they want and need an expert to back up their product claims, because they can't do it on their own without you. And that's what I think a lot of us just need to embrace, is that these companies really need you.
They need you. They need your expertise, and we're available for them. So I think that's it for the questions. Amy, you are providing a masterclass, a free masterclass upcoming, and I will put the link in that for everybody. The topic is how to multiply your income by working less, right? That's the whole idea is like when you think about multiplying, you think about the multiplying the number of hours you're working, but that's the whole idea. And so that's what she's going to talk about. She has some very specific things in there. And just Amy is a wealth of knowledge. I have known Amy for years now and just really fun to work with, easy to work with. She's super professional and just a gift to our profession. So I hope you guys can connect with her. I hope you guys can check out her class that is next week. Amy, anything else you want to share that I forgot about?
Honestly, if you're thinking about even finding out more information about being a media dietitian, you should just at least learn more. So join the masterclass next week. Don't say I need to wait to do X, Y, and Z, because that's the biggest thing I see is someone who's like, I need to create a website before I do this. I need to have an Instagram page. Like you don't need anything except your expertise. So I can't wait to share more with you. And Stacey has that link.
Yeah,
And
I have the link. I'll share it with you in an email. I'll share it in the body of this video that will be posted, so you'll have it as well. And I'll get that out very, very soon as this video processes. All right, everybody, I'm so appreciative. Thank you so much for your time, Amy, and thank you for everybody else who took time out of their day, and I'm just really appreciative. All right, that's
thank
it.
you so much.
Bye for now, everybody.
Bye.